Okay, let's dive right into this explainer of an absolutely thrilling mystery. Today, we're tagging along with the brilliant Inspector Vikram as he unravels what looks like, well, a completely impossible crime. We're going to tear apart a case that literally seems to defy the laws of physics, breaking down the evidence piece by piece to see exactly how a supposedly perfect illusion was built and ultimately how it all came crashing down.
Right off the bat, we run into the ultimate paradox. Seriously, how do you murder someone in a completely sealed room? It forces us to ask how a killer can strike without ever entering or leaving the scene. It's the kind of puzzle that's kept mystery lovers up at night for generations. And the answer to this specific case is just insanely ingenious.
Part 1. The Locked Room Murder.
So, let's set the scene. Our victim is Aravind Rajan. He was a billionaire titan of industry, living in the ultra-luxurious Sky Heights bungalow over in Chennai. At 11:45 p.m., he was locked in his private study. But the next morning, when his housekeeper brought breakfast, there was no answer. After they finally broke down the heavy door, they found a chilling sight: Aravind Rajan completely lifeless in his chair.
But here is where it gets incredibly weird. Absolutely nothing points to a typical break-in. Think about this. The door was bolted from the inside. The windows were completely sealed shut. The AC was just humming along normally. There was a half-finished cup of coffee on the desk, some broken glass on the floor, and no struggle, nothing stolen. For a billionaire, that's crazy. It was a flawlessly sealed environment.
Part 2. 4 motives, 4 suspects. Now, when you're a billionaire, you tend to make some enemies. And we've got 4 prime suspects who had both a massive motive and intimate insider knowledge of the house. First, there's his son Karthik, who was constantly fighting with him over the family fortune. Then, Ramesh, a furious business partner. Next is Neela, the personal secretary who literally knew all his secrets. And finally, Morgan, the head of security who controlled the entire camera system.
Just to give you an idea of this staggering stakes we're talking about here, let's talk numbers. $500 million, $500 million. That was the value of a massive business deal that just collapsed, and it was entirely Arvind's fault. That gave his partner, Ramesh, a massive financial motive. But, as Inspector Vikram knows, all the motive in the world doesn't explain how a killer just walked through solid walls.
Part 3. The 3 impossible clues.
Inspector Vikram bypasses the obvious and zeroes in on the security footage. The timeline here reveals something totally wild. Nobody went into that room after 10 p.m. But exactly between 11:30 p.m. and 12:15 a.m., every single camera in the mansion just failed. And get this, investigators confirmed there was absolutely no power outage. Someone systematically and deliberately blinded the entire surveillance system to create a dark window.
Clue number 2 was sitting right on the desk. Vikram noticed that the half-finished coffee, it wasn't actually poisoned. Instead, a super rare, heart-stopping chemical powder was dusted exclusively on the outside handle of the cup. The killer introduced a deadly, airborne threat right next to the victim. But why only on the handle? It didn't make any sense.
And that brings us to the third, totally bizarre clue. The wall clock in the study was stopped exactly at 11:58 p.m. Vikram knew that wasn't a coincidence. Someone wanted them to see that time. When he pulled the clock off the wall, it wasn't a normal clock at all. Hidden inside was a tiny electronic wire connected to a miniature remote-controlled device. It was a triggered mechanism.
Part 4. Reconstructing the Kron.
So Vikram pulls the architectural blueprints of the mansion and strikes gold. Right above the study is this small, dusty maintenance space that nobody ever uses. He climbs up there, and right in the middle of all that undisturbed dust are fresh footprints. And even crazier, a tiny, deliberate hole had been drilled into the floor directly over Aravind's desk. The killer didn't come through the door or the window. They attacked from above.
This whole setup is like a deadly Rube Goldberg machine. Step 1. Hide up in the ceiling. Step 2. Use a thin tube to drop that deadly powder right onto the coffee cup handle below. Step 3. Hit the remote to trigger the device hidden inside the wall clock, which shatters the glass in the room. Step 4. Aravind startles from the sudden noise, jumps up, reaches for his coffee, and accidentally inhales the powder. Just like that, they turned an unbreachable room into a perfectly sealed execution chamber.
Part 5. The final shocking twist.
Okay, so Vikram knows the how, but the who is where things get really crazy. Security logs proved only one person had gone into that ceiling space that afternoon.
Murugan, the head of security. When they brought him in, he completely broke down. He swore he was just the hired muscle, paid to install the hardware, and claimed he had absolutely no idea it was a murder plot. So the whole investigation hinges on one question. If Murugan was just the installer, who actually paid him to build this trap? Vikram follows the money, and the trail points directly to the one person who knew every single detail of Aravin's daily routine.
That trail leads straight to Nyla, the personal secretary. But when they arrest her, she doesn't panic. Actually, she just smiles and calmly drops a bombshell. I'm not the only one involved. Right at that exact moment, Vikram gets a call that Aravin's lawyer has vanished. They rush to the lawyer's office and find a newly updated will that flips the entire case on its head.
Get a load of what this missing will revealed. Aravin had totally disinherited his son, Karthik, and in his place, he named Neela, his secretary, as the sole heir to the massive fortune. Karthik found out about this and, naturally, threatened Neela. But, faced with losing everything, Karthik realized he couldn't beat her in court. So, actually, scratch that, they didn't fight. They joined forces.
It was never a solo mastermind. It was an unholy three-person alliance. Nyla designed the intricate method using her knowledge of Aravin's habits. Murugan used his physical access to install the trap, and Karthik used his system access to kill the cameras. Each one used their unique privileges to pull off the ultimate illusion.
They genuinely thought they had committed the perfect crime. But this entire brilliant, multi-million-dollar conspiracy was brought down by a few microscopic grains of white powder left on a coffee cup handle. They planned for the locked door, they planned for the cameras, and the timing was flawless. But because they couldn't enter the room afterward, they couldn't clean up the physical evidence. That one tiny detail shattered their whole network.
Later, when reporters asked Inspector Vikram how he cracked such an impossible puzzle, he dropped this gem. No matter how perfect a crime appears, the truth always hides in the smallest clue. It's such a powerful reminder that sharp observation and lateral thinking can tear down even the most perfectly engineered lies.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. When a situation in front of you seems completely, utterly impossible, what tiny detail might you be overlooking? Sometimes massive illusions are just there to distract us from the few grains of truth sitting right in plain sight. Keep that in mind next time you hit a brick wall, and thank you so much for joining me today. Keep looking for those small clues.